What better birthday present for 5-year-old Jessica Stevenson than the news that the war is over and that her father, Lieutenant Colonel Marshall Stevenson, will be coming home with the 24th Infantry Division.
Now, Daddy kissed right there. You have to kiss that.
At schools around Fort Stewart, home of the 24th, the children of soldiers who fought and won in the desert are proud and relieved.
I'm glad when the war's over because I thought my dad was going to die. I'm proud of him that he went over there and did what he was supposed to and is coming back safely.
Some of their mothers, while glad the shooting has stopped, are still cautious. Are you concerned about Saddam Hussein double-crossing us?
Yes, I am. I'm still cautious of that personality.
Reserved happiness.
Linda Craddock's husband, John, is the commander of one of the division's tank battalions. She would have had to assist the wives of soldiers killed in action against the Republican Guard.
The 24th Infantry Division had no soldiers killed during that day-long battle.
I can't believe it. I mean, but that is one of the biggest reliefs I have.
When the 14,000 men of the 24th left for Saudi Arabia last August, they left some businesses in the small town of Hinesville high and dry, and some with their heads barely above water.
We've been impacted probably 40–50%.
But economic depression aside, civic and business leaders are determined to welcome the 24th back with a huge victory parade.
We want to show these people that unlike when the troops came back from Vietnam, we're proud of what these boys did.
Leading the parade will be the mayor of Hinesville, who, like everybody else here, is hoping for a speedy return of the 24th. He says they can drive those big tanks right down Main Street. We'll worry about fixing the pavement later. Kenley Jones, NBC News, Hinesville, Georgia.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. America at Peace continues with Tom Brokaw in Kuwait City and Jane Pauley in New York.
Good evening from Kuwait City. This special edition of America at Peace continues now, and here's the latest on what's left of the war in the Persian Gulf. Iraq is finally accepting President Bush's conditions for surrender. The ceasefire is holding. In Kuwait, the horror stories from the Iraqi occupation, some are exaggerated, but many others are just too real. And 85% approval. That's President Bush's latest job rating. It's the highest for a president of the United States since World War II. News of the ceasefire and Iraq's acceptance of many of the terms spread slowly here in Kuwait because the communications are so hit and miss. But NBC's Mike Betcher today was with a Marine regiment that helped liberate the Kuwaiti capital.
Towards Kuwait City was obscured by a curtain of burning oil. At times, noon had been as dark as midnight on a moonless night. They were covered in a greasy rain, but at least for the final few miles, they had trucks in which to ride. The 3rd Regiment of the 3rd Marines had walked much of the way, slogging through wet sand and minefields, entering Kuwait a day before any other American unit. In an era of laser bombs and guided missiles, there still was a place for these mud Marines. They had marked the path for the others to follow. The ceasefire would bring a welcome rest. Now they were in Kuwait City. Victory, a bit of glory, and a ticket home were theirs.
They got their country back. We helped them get it. Now it's time to go.
At the entrance to the city, the Marines met jubilant Kuwaitis. But they also met an angry people, a people who had been unable to speak for almost 7 months, a people who wanted to tell their story.
Kill Saddam Hussein. 7 months, you don't know what happened in Kuwait. No, have anybody come in Kuwait to put camera what happened in Kuwait.
Other military services accuse Marines of doing things the hard way, but they had been given the hard job and succeeded. Along the way, India Company had stopped to mark the promotion of 2 of its enlisted men.
And salute.
They had won another chevron, and their corps had won back a desolate stretch of desert. Now they were ready to get home. When a Marine is ready, he will tell you that he is good to go. Now he will tell you it will be good to go home. Mike Betcher, NBC News, Kuwait City.
And now a part of southern Iraq remains a kind of province of the United States Army, as there are military forces there to secure the transition from war to peace. NBC's George Lewis is a network correspondent with a pool of journalists with the Army engineers in Iraq.
The Allies have occupied Iraq in a big way. They've bulldozed roads deep into the country and set up bases on Iraqi soil. For mile after mile, American convoys clogged the routes into southern Iraq. The Americans and their allies have brought enough troops, weapons, ammunition, and supplies to stay here a long time. French forces occupy the Iraqi village of Al Salman, which they took after a brief battle. Only a few villagers remain. At this schoolhouse, which the Iraqis used as their military headquarters, someone has defaced the portrait of President Saddam Hussein. The fact that the Allies now occupy a huge chunk of Iraq following the collapse of the Iraqi army adds up to a big humiliation for President Saddam Hussein. And the occupation gives the Allies considerable leverage in any post-war negotiations with the Iraqis. The GIs riding in the convoys are all hoping they won't have to remain here too long.
We're one step closer to being home. That's what we're all dreaming for. Getting this wrapped up and getting back to family and friends.
U.S. troops have been collecting and destroying Iraqi arms. This military police outfit from Fort Carson, Colorado, piled ammunition and assault rifles into a Soviet-made T-54 tank and threw an incendiary grenade into the tank's turret. Then they watched the fireworks. In the midst of all the Allied military activity, one pastoral scene. An Iraqi shepherd tending his flock. He said he was happy the shooting here had ended, adding the Arabic expression, Inshallah, if God wills it. George Lewis, NBC News, Southern Iraq.
Secretary of State James Baker is scheduled to head to the Middle East next week, and one of the problems that now will move to center stage, Israel and the Palestinians.